thank you so very, very much for tuning in to another episode of Real Solutions. I am your host, Anna M. Aquino, and I am really excited about this episode. It's starting to be fall now, people. I was in the store today and I saw apple cider. So what do you do at the fall? You go back to school, and so this is a special back to school episode. I wanted to just, bring some things up and to talk about some things. So I have some awesome guests today. I have Isabella Aquino, who we've had on the show before, is my oldest daughter. And I have a dear friend of mine, Connie McVeigh, and we're going to be talking about some schooling options. I know that a lot of us are used to the traditional public school, and this is what we went to, this is what our grandparents went to, and we're convinced that this is the best thing for our children. And I don't know about y'all, but I have kind of gone through a journey in my walk in how do I educate my own children, and we're going to get into all of that in a little bit. But I wanted to do this show just so that people know that there's other options out there, because I'm going to be really honest here for a minute. I was so against homeschooling. I was against it. I said that Christians were, or not, some people that homeschool aren't always Christian, but they were just sheltering their children, and these kids are never going to know what it's like to be, Christians in a secular world. But we went through some things, and my ideas are kind of changed about that now, so that's why I wanted to do the show. So, Connie, how many children do you have?
I have 4 children.
You have 4 children. Mm-hmm. And tell us your journey. How did you do what you do today?
Okay, so I have an 11-year-old, a 5-year-old, and twins that are 4. And my journey started out like yours. I was completely against it. I thought, yes, homeschooling is for some people, but God did not call me to homeschool. I even remember being in high school, and I had a neighbor who was homeschooled, and he was like a weird homeschooler. Like, he was completely unsocialized. He had no friends except for us, and we didn't really like him. We just thought he was weird. And he had a pool though, so that's like why we hung out with him. But honestly, other than that, we just thought homeschoolers were weird. And then I started growing up, and the church we went to has people that homeschool, and they are not weird. And so I realized outside of my own experience, there are other people who homeschool, and they're completely normal, and that was great for them, but God did not call me to homeschool at all. That's what I thought. And my friend who had started homeschooling started praying for us, and was saying, I'm just going to keep praying for you. God's going to call you to homeschool. You're already called. You just don't know it. And I was like, okay, whatever you say.
That's one of those.
Yeah. Never! Yeah. Okay, you can pray for me, that's fine, but I'm praying against her, so I'm canceling out the prayer. And so I'll never forget this. This one day I was straightening my hair, and I heard the Holy Spirit tell me, Connie, this is the moment. I'm calling you to homeschool. And I dropped my flat iron, and I called her, and I was like, are you praying for me right now? And she's like, did he tell you? Did he tell you? And I was like, yeah, but I don't think it's right. But in that moment I knew, okay, so now I can't use the excuse that I'm not called to homeschool, but I still need to figure out for me what that journey was and what that meant. And I was pregnant with twins at the time, and I knew that moment wasn't right. I wasn't pulling them out of school the next day. I still needed to pray about it. I needed more confirmation. God telling me wasn't enough. And then we had some things happen. Caleb was in a private Christian school, and we had some things happen that, he came home with knowledge of things that made him scared. Personally, we don't choose to celebrate Halloween, but he came home around the Halloween time talking about zombies, and he was scared to walk down the hallway of our tiny apartment to go to the bathroom. It's just other things that he just should not have been exposed to, and the environment I was paying for him to be in. I thought paying for him to be in a private Christian school would mean he would be around all the people that felt like I did. That's just what I thought, and for us that wasn't the case. And so I pulled him out at the end of that year and decided to homeschool him for 2nd grade, and for us it wasn't a great time when I made that decision, because I had newborn babies, and my twins have a brother who's 11 months older than they are, and so I had basically triplets, and I was not able to give him the attention that he wanted, and so I thought, because I couldn't do what school looked like at the time, that I wasn't being a benefit to him, and so the next year we sent him to a public school, because private school, why pay for the things he can get when he can get it for free, That's what I was thinking. So we sent him to a private school, and I pulled him out shortly after that because some stuff happened. And So then I homeschooled him the rest of that year. And then the next year I thought, wow, I didn't do him a good service. So I paid for him to go to another private Christian school 2 years ago. And it was $6,000 for the year. And he came home and he still had 4 hours of homework every night. And I thought, like I could do 4 hours of schoolwork in the morning and not have to pay for it, and so I just decided that God had to let me do a whole bunch of things to realize that he did in fact call me personally to homeschool, and I had to try a bunch of different things before I finally got like the nail in the coffin. Like he was finally like, all right, you know what, you finally came to that point and realized that this is what I've called you to do, and even if I did nothing, I would be doing him a better service than sending him, around people that aren't of the same mind. And through that journey too, I also was able to do a lot of studying in the Bible, and where God, He's called me and my husband to train him up, and that's our job. And so whatever failed him in the private school or the public school was nobody else's fault but ours, because for us personally, we believe that when the Bible says God's called us to raise him up in the way that he should go, well, he's not going to be raised up in the way he should go if he spends like more time with other people than with us. So
absolutely,
that's just what we finally came to that realization. It took me a long time, but last year was our first full year of homeschooling, and even though it was not perfect, and there were still some ups and downs and some bumps and bruises, there was still a lot of joy and a lot of peace and a lot of laughter, and really just peace in knowing I was doing what God called me to do, and that He has given me the provision to do the thing that He's called me to do. It's not just, here you go, figure it out, which I thought that's what I had to do. But
right, and I think we get so stuck on this is what education should look like if we're being good parents.
Yeah.
We get so stuck on, and if you think about it for a while, and I'm not suggesting this to anybody, but, back in the pioneer days, that's exactly what happened, is that, we educated our kids out of our cabins, and they got a good education. And I believe in education very much so. But I don't want to do it at the sake of the sanity of the family and that nucleus network. And, again, exactly what Connie said, God gave me these children. That means God's giving me and my spouse the wisdom on how to raise them and how to parent them. So my children, Isabella being the oldest, went to a public charter school in Florida what year did we take you out? What year did we move? It was 7th grade, wasn't it?
There's 7th or 8th grade, I think.
You started the ECOT in 8th, so it'd be 7th till 7th. So
Yeah.
K through 7, she was in a public school system. Do you want to really briefly, don't have to go through everything, but just really briefly tell what we went through in the public school system?
Wow, that's really hard to do it. What happened very briefly, but we had a lot of strife, like between religious, like persecution, especially. Just a lot of things that went through. I had just like different teachers that didn't that contradicted to what I was trying to be taught from my mom and dad, and so it was kind of hard to go through that every day.
Yeah, it was hard. I remember we were fine until about 6th grade, I think. And then I can remember you just breaking down and saying, what's wrong with me? What's going on with these people? And it was hard as a parent to be in that position. Isabella did have, I would say, some teacher bullying. I'm all for us all having different opinions, but let's respect each other. And I can remember that we got out of a meeting with a teacher. I had encouraged Bella to share her own views because this teacher kept trying to drive this point across. He was a very angry atheist, and we still prayed for him. But he kept trying to single her out, and we were in a parent meeting where he was lying to me again, and he called me a bad mother for encouraging my daughter to stand up for her own views. Again, the reason I was against homeschooling was because I was like, I'm not teaching my child to stand up for their own views, so I thought this was a good example, and for her to at least stand her ground. And he became a very bullying individual, and that was what was so hard for me to say. There's got to be a balance. There's got to be where do I draw the line of educating my children versus throwing them to the wolves? Because that's what I felt like I was doing. It was like, no longer can I throw my children to the wolves just because that's what's considered normal. And it's not because I want to shelter my kids. I just want them to be raised up in a manner, educated, and then make their choices. And so now, tell them what you do now.
Well, there's this new program in Ohio that I think this is like the first time that they've let it out to like 8th graders, but you have to pass like a certain test to get into college, but you can take high school classes and take college classes at the same time. It's called CCP. Yeah.
And it's pretty much well known. She's in a virtual high school, and now she goes to college part-time and high school part-time. And everyone kind of laughs when I tell this because I didn't want to throw my children to the wolves, but she goes to a virtual high school. So the high school's online, but the college is actually in a classroom setting. So, hey, last year she took philosophy, so that was an interesting thing. What does your 14-year-old do in philosophy? But, I mean, she did awesome, and she's excelling. And I think for us, this was the best solution for our family and some times of transition. And I recently was part of an article with ECOT, and which is an online virtual school in Ohio, in the state of Ohio. And one thing that they said to me, and I think that would resonate with you as well, Connie, is we kept interviewing about why we chose to do this. And I must have said it and I didn't mean it kind of thing, but after I said it, I thought, what a good response. I had said time is a currency, and I figure life is a gift. And I've been given these children, and I don't want to waste it. And I'm not saying if you're putting your kids in a public school, you're wasting it, but my youngest daughter, she's usually in school from, 8:30 to like maybe noon?
Yeah.
We can go on family walks together. I'm not encouraging not educating your children, but I'm encouraging the family unit. Yeah. What works for your family? And I know that there'll be homeschoolers that'll fight with the public schoolers. There'll be people fighting back and forth of this, but what works for your family? And I think that that's what God wants for your family, is to be a more unit, because let's face it, she's turned 15 not too long ago. I've got 3 more years before she takes off to go to major college. Let's savor this time. Yeah. Let's work for our family. So do either one of you have any other things you want to add to this, just kind of as an open forum?
Yeah, I mean, about the time being the currency, that's interesting because my husband kind of does a lot of things with his philosophy of the parable of the talents. And he thinks, he transitions the talents, and, that was like their form of currency, to like time or our children, So like God gave us 4 children, and that's, it's our duty to raise them up in the right way. And he loves telling people this, so I'm not going to take the credit from him. So I'm just stealing it from him. But but he likes to say, God gave me these 4 children and my wife, and it's my job as like the head of our household and as a mother, it's my job for my children to make sure that when they return back to God, when their time is done here, that we've returned them back better than they were when we got them. And so I can't do that if they're spending 9 hours a day with their people. I mean, it's already, complicated enough, like, trying to get 4 little people to, like, think the right way, because we're born into this system with a negative mindset anyways, and now we're trying to take, that negative mindset and turn it into, like, something wonderful. And if they're spending 9 hours with negative association and negative words and just things that aren't pure and holy and good and things that they think on, I mean, it's going to take even that much longer for us to turn that around. So
absolutely,
we're trying to get the ship steered in the right direction,
absolutely,
so that they can go off and get to the right destination with the right frame of mind.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely. And I've been recently reading a book. What is that book you loaned me? I can't remember.
What to Say When You Talk to Yourself.
That one. What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. And there's my little plug for this book. But anyway, it's so great talking about what the negative mindsets, and you grow up with these negative mindsets, you don't realize that a lot of times they affect you internally, even if you think you're past them. So if this is one thing that I can help my children have such a positive foundation. Yeah. Let's lay it positively, because let's face it, they will come against things, they will do things, but let's lay that a positive foundation so that they don't have to fight that until they're strong enough. And so I really love that. Well, I want to thank you all for watching today. I want you to all just pray in what God has on your heart for your children if you've got young ones at home. If you want to send me an email, we'll have the information below. And remember, God has awesome plans for your life, so you get excited. Thanks for watching.